Hey, welcome back to the Sassy Granny Quilt Along, and we are on week 2. So last week we chose our fabrics, cut our fabrics, and organized our fabrics. So if you missed that video or that post, go back and watch that first and get caught up, because this time we are making our first 6 blocks. This is so much fun. I love mixing, matching those squares to make this block, and I think you're really gonna enjoy it too. Let me just show you my first block because I'm overly excited right now. All right, so there's my first block, and I am playing with a scrappy low volume background, and that butterfly is just making me die of happiness right now. I'm pretty excited. All right, so first, before we jump into block making, we have a smidgen more organizing pieces together. We're gonna round up each block's pieces before we actually start making these 6 blocks. So let's go and get that going. Okay, hey. If you have your book out, we're on page 27. And we are on the organizing step. So this is what we need to do before we can actually move on to making blocks. And once it's done, we won't have to do this every week. We'll just have everything ready to go. So we are organizing. So we're gonna lay out our A, our B, and our C fabrics. And a little trick to this step is, well, let me just tell you this first. We have a little bit more than we need here in these squares for this block. We have more than we need, but if you don't lay these out in the correct order, you'll find that you're going to be short some. So it's important to do your C squares first. There's 8 C squares in every block. We have 25 blocks. So what I've done is I've got 8 C squares, 8 C squares, 8 C squares, and I've got 25 versions of that. I've tried to use my fabrics about the same amount of times. So there should be, like, of this fabric, there should be, you know, maybe 3 C squares. I think there ends up being one that has one more, or I might have that a little bit backwards, but I've tried to keep it pretty much the same, where the fabrics are getting used the same, but I'm not, you know, I'm not going into very detailed with that. Sometimes it may not end up that way. All our 8 C squares laid out. There's one of these for every single block. So that's what this is. And now we're going to start with our B squares, and there's 4 B squares in each block. So just go ahead and take one of your fabric stacks right here, and then use this, I've grabbed these, so I'm going to use this as a B square a couple of times. So I'm just going to count out my 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to find a place to put it. I might do that twice for each one before I start getting particular. 1, 2, 3, 4, and let's go right there. And I'm just going to keep going down the line on my fabrics, grabbing them 1, 2, 3, 4, and then finding a place for it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see, I don't know why I'm being particular right now. We've got a long way to go. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna put this on a little bit. I'm gonna put this on a fast mode where you watch me work through these, and then I'll come back when I get close to being done. Okay, so now I just want to make sure that I haven't missed one of my stacks and didn't put something on top of it. So I'm just going to go through these really quick and look at that. And you can see I've already ran out of one of my fabrics, so I must have used it a little bit more than the others, so it won't be able to make it for an A square. That might be something you might want to think about, or you might just be like me and just well, it doesn't really matter as long as everything's getting used, because they're all going to be all your blocks are going to be all mixy matchy of these A, B, and C squares. All right, so I think I have everything good, and now this is the easy part, is we just go through with our A squares and drop 1 on each stack. So I'm going to try to use them all, I'm going to at least make an effort of using them all a similar amount of times, but I know that I can't because I've already, used up one like I mentioned. let me just making sure that I've got 3 different fabrics for each of these stacks. Sometimes it's hard to see. So let me just work through these by touching each of them, making sure that I've got everything covered here. Yeah. All right, so I've got all of my squares, and this is what I had left over, so there wasn't a lot of choices. I don't know why I ended up with so many of that one. The combinations that you could do here is crazy combinations. You can literally do something completely different from the person next to you. So there's no right or wrong to these combos. I'm just kind of winging all this. And one thing that I am thinking about is fabric placement. So, you know, obviously B and C are gonna touch, and then A and B are gonna touch. So I like to think about that a little bit as I put these stacks in here, but I don't think there's a single fabric that I've used that isn't touching another combination. So I think everything should be kind of touching, which is something I talked about last week, making sure that you like all your fabrics and they all could be touching each other and you'd be happy with that. So that's just a little something. So we've got all our A's and all our B's and all of our C's laid out per block. I'm just going to count through my blocks one last time and make sure I have them all. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. And we are good. All right, so we are done with these. These are scraps. I would recommend putting these, you know, to the side before you throw them in your scrap baskets, because you never know when something could go missing. So I'll hold on to that for a minute. And then we are going to lay out our backgrounds. So this is going to be a little bit fussy, and I don't know if I'm going to have room to do it all here on the camera. So I'm using a scrappy background of low volumes. So I don't care which one ends up in which block. So that might be something to think about too. You might not have to lay this part out if you don't want to. I think I am going to lay out my background with my blocks though, not just so I can match it, but so that I can grab blocks in the weeks to come as we work through this quilt together and just grab the stack and then go to the sewing machine. So each week I'll be grabbing, you know, 6 stacks, 6 stacks, 6 stacks, and then I'll just take it to the sewing machine and everything will be laid out for me and ready to go. If you're looking on page 27, the diagram right beside step 2, it tells you all the pieces you need, and each block needs, you know, 2 of the smallest size background squares. So I will put 2 of each of these in each stack. And I'm just going to do this on fast mode really quick. All right, so there is part of our background laid out. And let's go ahead and lay out that second smallest background piece. And your blocks will get 4 of these a piece. So I'm just trying to, when I'm doing this, I'm just trying to make sure that I've got my fabrics all mixed up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out 1 on each stack and then go back, do my second, do my third, and do my fourth. Okay. So I thought I was a little bit short, but I ended up finding my piece that I thought I was short on. So if you are using a single background, I would skip laying the background pieces out, because it doesn't matter where you put them. The reason I laid out my background pieces with my blocks is because I wanted to have it all mixed up together, and I didn't want 2 of these flowers sitting beside each other. But if you're using a single background, that's not a worry. So I would skip what I just did and just leave it with your A, B, and C squares. All right, so I'm going to keep doing this background stuff until I have all my pieces laid out. I don't see any need to add that last long background to these stacks, so I'll put that on last. I mean, that piece gets put on at the very end anyway. So I'm just going to go through now and take my little stacks and just clip them together so that they stay together, for the coming weeks. And I'm using these little binder clips, and I will keep doing this until I have all of them together. All right, right, so I'm just gonna keep organized, just like that. All right, so we've done all this in prep work for future weeks, but this week, all we really need to do is get our 6 blocks done. So I'm just gonna grab 6 of these back out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and these are the 6 blocks that I'm gonna work on. All right, and they're gonna go together just like this. So let's get all of our pieces laid out. Our A, B, and then we start putting in C. All right, so just like that. And then we will put in these background squares. So your background squares, the smallest ones goes on the end, and then it looks a little something like this. And then the third largest size goes just like this. And those other long backgrounds go just like this. All right, so this is what we have going on. All right, so what we're gonna do is, this is pretty time consuming. So so there's a lot of sewing to get done. So each of the blocks are gonna look like this, all 6 of your blocks, and you're gonna go sew these rows together. We're gonna just do this one block together, and then I'll get my other 5 done on my own, but I'm just gonna do this row, this row, this row, this row, and this row. And let's get them all sewn together. All right, so all sewn up, and it looks a little something like this. All right, and we are just going to alternate the direction of our seams per row. So I'll do this row with the seams going this way, just like that. And I'll do this row with the seams going this way. And I'm gonna keep doing this until all of my seams are going in opposite directions, and this will make everything nest up nice and neat. Okay, so I just want to take a minute and make sure that I've done everything right. I noticed that I had fabrics, these 2 fabrics were touching, so I did some flipping and rearranging. But there we go. Everything is in the right place. We've got our little square shape coming together here, and then our bigger square shape coming together here. All right, so I'm just gonna take this second from the bottom, and there's 2 seams to match right here. So I'm going to get those nested, bumped up together real close, and put a stitch directly in my stitch line. And I'm gonna do the same for this seam. And I'm gonna put a pin, over here on these sides too. I usually only put pins, you know, on the seams that I want to line up, but to keep it together and make it piece a little bit faster, putting them on the edges is good too. So this same thing, this one's going to come back on top of this one, and there's 4 seams on this one to get nested and lined up. And you can really feel those seams bump up and kiss each other with your fingers. And that means that you're going to get a really nice point lined up, which is always the goal. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and pin these edges too. All right, so we're just going to leave this one here for now, and we're going to go sew right across here and then right across here. All right, so all sewn, and I'm just going to give these a little press to set their seams. Like that, and then we're going to press these cross seams open. So open up the seam. Come on, and do just like this. Just like that. There's that one. Look at that. Nice and neat. I just get so happy when it comes out all wonderful like that. All right. Same thing on this seam. Okay. Looking good. All right, we're going to take this one and we're going to put it down on top of this one, and then we're going to line up these seams. I think there's 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, well, 4 seams to get lined up. So let's get our pins going. All right, and I'm just gonna go and sew right across here. Sewn up again. Let's get this seam set by giving it a little press. And then we're gonna do the same thing and open up this seam here. Flip it over and press again. It's so cute. I love blocks coming together. Anytime I'm putting blocks together, I'm usually pretty happy. All right. Then we've got this one. So flip it down. Oh, I've lost my pin cushion. All right, so there's only 2 seams to get matched. Get those nested up and pinned. And then I'll put pins right down here and right down here. And same thing, gonna go and sew right across there. Let's set this seam. And one last time, open this seam up. And press again. All right, so that looks good. And your largest strips, one's gonna go up here and one's gonna go down here. Let's go ahead and get these 2 sewn to this. All right, so set our seams. And on pressing these seams, we're just gonna press this one up and then this one down. So press towards your background rectangle. Just like that. All right, and I am just going to give this some starch and press again. Okay, so there is my first block, and pretty cute. So now I'm just going to finish up the rest of my blocks. So I've got 5 more blocks to do, and I will show them to you when I got them all done. Okay, I have worked through my 6 blocks, and I am, oh my gosh, blocks coming together just really gets my heart going, especially when I get to use all these low volumes. I haven't got to use low volumes in a really long time in a background, and they have me really excited. I've forgotten how much I love them. Anyway, so let me just show you my blocks real quick. It's that one and this one. Oh my goodness, this one, look how perfect that came out. And that was just a total fluke. I'm really excited. I'm hoping it does that a couple of times in the quilt. And that one, pretty. I'm loving how the little yellow background is popping against all the paler ones. Ta-da! Da-da-da! Da-da-da! That's all. So yay!
Woof! That was a lot of piecing. I mean, that was more piecing than I even anticipated. I haven't made this quilt since last year, and I had forgotten that's a lot of seams. So definitely break it up into however many days you want to. You have a whole week to do these 6 blocks, and just because I'm doing them in one day for recording purpose doesn't mean that you have to. Also, with that in mind, there's really no, I mean, we have a schedule just to keep everything on track, but if you are working ahead, work ahead. If you are behind us, be behind us.
you only need to be making progress. So whatever your progress is perfectly fine. Post your progress on Instagram, whatever that progress is, using the hashtag SassyGrannyQAL, and you'll be eligible for the prizes. You do need to be following all of the sponsors for the whole quilt along. You can find that list of sponsors in every one of my newsletters or posts for the quilt along. You can just click and follow, click and follow. I've got them all linked up to make it really, really easy for you to do. So do that. And one final thing. Okay, so it was brought to my attention that when I listed out my fabrics in the newsletter and in the post, that some of the links were broken. That means they are out of stock. So if you were looking for my gentleness fabrics or my cinnamon tea fabrics that I'm using in my quilt, those are coming back in stock late May, early June, and those links will start working then. So sorry about that. Cinnamon tea's been out of stock for a while, but gentleness just ran out of stock too. So you can get those later if you're interested. I hope you will be. But yeah, okay, so I think that's it. So I have a great week. Happy Wednesday, happy sewing, and I'll see you next Wednesday.